Ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen specifically, welcome to the Shadowcast episode 2. Alex, this is episode 2 of season 4? Might be season 4 of the Shadowcast.
Might be 4, might be 3. I can't tell. I lost track after the infamous Lost episode where we recorded with Buchanan for like an hour and it disappeared forever. So ever since then, it's hard to keep track of.
Yeah, the best guest we had on, maybe the best episode, and only the 4 of us will ever be able to enjoy it. But here we are. We licked our wounds from that. We're back for another season, and this one seems like it's here to stay. We have over 5,000 views on the Shadowcast episode 1 on my YouTube channel, divided by 18. So that's been fantastic. I'd like to welcome, obviously, my trusty co-host, Alex Opiella, Alex, the commissioner of the league, Green Eggs and Hamos franchise owner, and 3-1 in the League of Shadows in 2020. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, good to be back. Feeling good after a third win in a row. A lot going on in the league right now too. So excited to get into it.
Yeah, it's really an active time. A lot of happy men, a lot of sad men. I'm in the latter category, but I still feel good. I'm still happy. And, we're missing our third wheel, so to speak, third man, but we have a co-host coming in out of nowhere. We have Pat O'Reilly, Chief Gentleman franchise owner. Welcome.
Hello. Happy to be here. Lifelong listener, big fan, first time caller. Really happy to be here.
Well, thanks, Pat. And it's we tried to do a Collinsworth type introduction with Pat. And that's the best we can do. That's the best we can ask for. And we want to keep in mind the listeners. They say great episode, but a 3-hour podcast for a 12-team fantasy league that only 10 other people besides us listen to is a little much. So we decided to cut it down really to 30 minutes here, Alex. So let's just get right into it. Let's go into game recaps. And we're going to start with maybe the least exciting. And there are many games that were not very exciting because none really went to the wire. We're going to start with Paula Etchaboy versus Raz Al Ghul. We had a matchup where Raz Al Ghul was just coming off the huge trade, and he explained his reasoning, and he said, if I can only get a win out of Paul or Warren or both, then I'm set up in a great position. He did not get the win, and it looks to me, Alex, the way that I can see it, that these injuries, he was really, really trying to make a comeback. But some of these injuries, you just can't play some of these guys in a 12-team league and have it work out for you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head where he was trying to be aggressive with that Devontae acquisition. In theory, it was a good idea. Didn't factor in the conservative nature of the Packers training staff. So to hold him out this week, I don't know if it would have made a 32-point difference necessarily, probably not. But that hurts. Now Devontae's on bye. He's going to have a tough time winning this week as well. And you touched on the guys like Greg Ward, Jimmy Graham, really have no business being in lineup. So I know Roz is concerned, rightfully so. He should be. His lineup does not look good. Henderson crashing back down to earth. But a nice performance from Paula with 100, just under 140 points, who, we talked about him last week as contender, pretender. I think his point total, as he tweeted out, is not very high, but those balls of steel, I think are something Paul has that Roz does not, and may carry him longer in the long run.
Yeah, at least that's the way it's looking so far, and a better training staff, clearly. The training staff that Roz has traded for Devontae Adams only to hold him out in a game that he needed him. I'm sure that didn't go well with the owner, but the doctors trusted over there, or he was trusted at the very least, and that's not going to be something we should probably keep an eye on going into this, because as we've talked about a few times in these episodes, Roz has a bit of a reputation around the league for some unconventional tactics towards players and personnel that do not act accordingly with his plan. Brandon Cooks comes to mind. And I'm sure House of Pancakes, even though they got the win last week, House of Pancakes is really thinking about doing the same to Brandon Cooks sometime soon. But Pat, if you can just jump in here, what was your takeaway? One takeaway from the matchup between Raz and Paula? Was it the quality, or was it the overwhelming talent that Paula had, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think this was a good statement game for Paula. I mean, he had the guys, he needed to really perform. Even Lamar had a great game. Looks like the Lamar we're so used to seeing. And Terry McLaurin, I like that pick a lot. 22 points last week. That's really going to help you as your wide receiver one. Zeke had a good game at 21 points, but obviously, you need to see some more consistent performance out of him, particularly when they're putting up, 38 points against Cleveland. You'd like to see him get more involved there. But, overall, I think it was a good win for Paul. Bob is, waiting to see that Devontae trade really pan out. But, I think, the way it stands now, if Darrell Henderson really is kind of this backseat running back right now, it's going to spell trouble for him down the line.
Yeah, it's a tough go. And I mean, I think this was, Alex, as you said, a statement game for Paul. Balls on the line and balls in his court, and he smashed Ra's al Ghul's balls pretty badly. And Terry McLaurin, I mean, the ghost of Terry McLaurin keeps hurting you, Alex, because you were right there. And as you said, multiple times on this pod and at the draft, he was your guy going into that round and just napped right onto you.
Yeah, I'll give Paul credit for making, what I consider good picks, especially, I mean, Terry at the end of the fourth, that was a great value, although we'll see what happens with the QB change. I mean, Kyle Allen is garbage, although he led DJ Moore to put up pretty good numbers last season. Maybe it's a similar situation to that, but definitely some uncertainty there going forward. But, like we've all said, overall, I think Paul's team is looking pretty good, and 3-1's a good place to be.
Yeah, 3-1 doesn't lie. I don't care what the points for, points against says. You win to win, and you just win. That's all that matters. And talk about a win, Alex. Let's jump over to your matchup. Really, a win. I'd say you can. We'll ask you. When did you feel comfortable? Around 125 or 140? What was the right time?
This was one of those picturesque fantasy days where the Pats aren't on. You're watching Red Zone, and it feels like every game they cut to, you have a guy that's scoring a touchdown, and it all comes together. We all have weeks like that. They're few and far between, especially in this league. But that's what this week was like for me. Just pure joy watching my guys rack up points all year. I think it's nice to see the ceiling of my team. Something I was worried about the first couple of weeks, where I was putting up like 115, 120 points. But almost getting to 180 and knowing that this group is capable of that makes me feel pretty good going forward. And then you added injuries to Chubb, injuries to Eckler. Sorry, Pat. And then Shark coming back to form after a week off. It's the Hamos train is trending up, so we're excited for it.
Yeah, Hamos train, absolutely, and it looks good. And Pat, let's hit that. We won't hit on your matchup quite yet, but let's hit on the Eckler part. I mean, Josh Kelly was there right for the taking, and that was the only running back room you didn't hedge.
Yeah.
And that turns out to be an interesting situation. We'll get to that later in the Wall Street Minute. But when you look at the Hamos versus Queefs matchup, Queefs has kind of fought the good fight a few times against clearly superior competition. And there's a guy, Aaron Jones, who you keep looking at. Are we reaching a situation with Aaron Jones where he's in that kind of Kittle range of, I can't believe this poor guy is stuck on an 0-4 team and needs to get out of there as soon as possible? I mean, I know you've been a big fan of Aaron Jones, and you've drafted him. You drafted him 2 years in a row. I mean, he's your guy. How do you feel about him being stuck on such a stuck in the mud franchise?
Yeah, no, I'll tell you. I mean, Aaron's always, had a special place in my heart. I'm really bummed now that Eckler's down that I didn't take him this year. I was really thinking about it. But one thing I will say for the Queefs is I really think they're better than the record says. They put up some pretty good weeks. They haven't really, it's tough to beat a team putting up 178, but 131 is a score that you should 50-50 win. But I think he's got some talent on his team. I think that once Michael Thomas comes back and healthy, again, there's a question mark when that will be. But when he's back and Aaron's running, I think he's got a pretty good team. I mean, I think there's certainly some holes there. Certainly I'm looking at here at Mark Ingram as your RB2 potentially, had some trouble there. But, I think a big pick by him was picking up Mike Davis. I think that's going to look really good. So I think, if the team starts figuring it out, I think that he could, right the ship. So I'm not sitting there, I'm not writing off Kansas City Chiefs yet, but certainly the time, clock is ticking for them.
Yeah, I like that take. And Alex, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I brought it up last time, and I keep thinking about it. He went 0-4 a few years ago and kept it rolling, stayed put, really, made a few good free agency moves and made the comeback. Of the two teams, I mean, this is a layup question for you, but of the two teams that are 0-4, you could really see Queefs being a playoff team over Moist Towelette. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it's possible. 0-4 is a virtual death sentence in my book. But I think if you look at how the standings are right now, where he's only 2 games out of a playoff spot because he's got the strong points for. So, I think there's usually a team that gets in, what would you say, Warren, with like a 9-6 record, or sorry, 7-6 record.
6. Yeah,
Usually
7-6.
one of those teams will sneak in.
Yeah.
Right. So he would basically have to go, 7-2 over the next 9 weeks, which is tough. Not impossible, especially with, Thomas comes back. It can happen. Definitely tough and not where you want to be at this point, but I won't write KC Queefs off yet. I will, however, write off Moist Towelette.
Yeah, I think that's you are being the safest man in the room by doing that. It's not taking, it took Paul a lot of balls to get that win last week. Doesn't take a lot of balls to make that prediction. I'll tell you that much. Talk about another team that doesn't seem to have any balls right now. Simba Corporation, really kind of suffering the same fate that Queef suffered, coming almost pretty much identical scores when you take a look at the matchups here. I'll just go in deep dive on my team for a second. The performers, some of the top performers didn't perform. And the main one who I keep hoping for got hurt again and kept having that hamstring issue, and it's Julio Jones. But I think the main story, it's not my team. We're a work in progress. Everyone knows that. The 1-3 record denotes that. But the main story is right after the Devontae from McCaffrey deal, here comes Treble, comes out of left field after putting up barely like 100 points the last 2 weeks after an unbelievable week 1, shows up this week and puts up another 170-plus performance. This is Jekyll and Hyde to the nth degree. How do we feel, Pat, I'll bring it to you right now. When you look at this team, is it going to be a Jekyll and Hyde team all year, or can we find some consistency for Treble?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I mean, you got guys in there that are stable. I mean, I think Russell Wilson's one of the more stable quarterbacks you can have. But, I mean, I think this week really comes down to Joe Mixon. I mean, he drops 42 points. He's been, a bum the entire year. So, I mean, I think a lot of his team really rides on what to make of this performance out of Joe Mixon. Is he going to be a pretty consistent RB1 now? And if so, then, I definitely think he could keep that up. And certainly, looking down the line, you get Christian coming back in a few weeks. And I don't know. I liked what Darren Waller did too. So it is definitely a Jekyll and Hyde situation. I think there's some stability, but it's risky. It's a team that you are very wary about facing every week just because you don't know what they're going to do.
No, you never know. And Alex, I mean, you see it. Pat brings up the best point. I mean, it all starts with the quarterback for Here Comes Treble. Russell Wilson didn't seem to be putting up that big week. And maybe that's just because expectations are so high for him. But then all of a sudden he just still ends up with 20 points. I was watching as much of the red zone that they had on with the Seahawks and the Dolphins. And it looked like the Dolphins were containing them. And they contained Lockett. And they really tried to say, okay, we're taking away Lockett. Let's see what else you can do. And Russell Wilson goes and performs the way he does. I mean, he keeps cooking, as tired as that's going to be for the rest of the year to say. That's the fact. And then Waller is a true – when it comes down to it, he's a target guzzler. He's the wide receiver 1 on that Raiders team, it looks like right now. So that's really impressive. What do you see? I think we see the strengths. When you see the weaknesses of the Treble team before McCaffrey comes back, where do you try to find some sort of weakness to exploit if you're facing them?
Yeah, I think Pat hit on it. It's sort of the Jekyll and Hyde nature that you described, Warren. I think that starts and ends with his 2 running backs. Mixon, we know he's capable as a player, but the nature of that team and that offense is going to lend itself to a lot of, poor performances from a running standpoint. And then Gurley, I think, is just like not even worth starting. Like if he didn't have 2 touchdowns this week, he would have had 7 points. So he needs McCaffrey back in here to be a true contender, in my opinion, because those 2 running backs are not reliable enough for me. McCaffrey would, you put McCaffrey and you slide Mixon into that RB2 spot, then it's a different story. But I would say that, the inconsistency of the back situation right now, and Mixon can come out this week and make me sound like an idiot, but I would say that is the glaring weakness as I see it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And with Todd Gurley, I think in worse leagues that don't kind of stack up to the League of Shadows, there'd be a buying frenzy for Todd Gurley because you see the 2 touchdowns. But everyone knows not to chase touchdowns. That's going to be an interesting spot for him. Can he hold the line, especially with Sony Michel, who looked good for a second against the Raiders? Can they hold the line and wait for McCaffrey to come back? It sounds like McCaffrey's a week away, but with high ankle sprains, Alex, as you well know, you're a week away from being a week away at all times, and all it takes is that little tweak. And so we'll see. I think here comes Treble, immediate statement game this past week, and he keeps yelling about it, proving people wrong. I mean, we were ripping him on this podcast. It's unbelievable how much hate he was getting, and I have to eat my words completely from it. But that's the win he needed, and Bob's trying to get the same in the next few weeks to wait and make sure that he has his team at full strength. So that's the way that it goes. We got, let's see.
Why don't we hit on, just because we didn't hit on his team last time at all, I don't think, before we move on from the recaps. The floppy Knox and Pat, man. Why don't we talk about that one?
Yeah.
Looking at Tom's team specifically, I believe he started 0-2 and has rattled off back-to-back wins to be in the hunt here. Looking at this team, what do you guys think? I mean, I think the Dalvin Cook pick is looking like he probably could have been, probably should have been 2nd or 3rd running back off the board. He leads the league in rushing right now. Is this a team that's going to be in the mix, or what do you guys think?
Call me crazy. I think so. I think that running back room is really impressive looking right now. I mean, you have Connor and Cook at the top, and Connor's now has his bye behind him, and he's a plug-and-play guy for the rest of the year. That's really impressive to me. I think for Tom to come away with that win, and it was closer than everyone thought. Unbelievable. Thanks to George Kittle, it was closer than everyone thought, but he came away with that win. And, Pat, as someone who just lost their top-tier running back and who's trying to recover, how important is the floppy knockers running back room when you have a guy like James White who went through unspeakable tragedy? You have Myles Gaskin break behind him, but then you have Dalvin and James Conner to bring up the front of the pack.
Yeah, no, it's huge. I mean, just speaking of Dalvin Cook, having that guy you can pencil in every week for 25, 22 to 27 points a game is huge. You're going to win that matchup 9 times out of 10. I think the running back stability is obviously his strong point, but I'm actually really curious about his receivers right now. I mean, Odell with 38 points last week. Is this the Odell we remember from a few years ago? Time will tell. I mean, the Browns are 3-1 now. So I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see if he can kind of break through. Tom also has some depth at his flex position. T. Higgins seems like a really good pick in his late rounds, and certainly on the board for a very good keeper. But I like this team a lot. I think it's very well rounded. Like you said, they have some real stallions there running back, but don't sleep on the receivers, and the quarterback play is too, viable QB1s potentially that he can throw in there. So I really like Tom going forward. I think he's got a good team, and see if continue it.
Yeah, I think, Alex, to your point, we didn't hit on him last week, and I think that clubhouse heard what they didn't hear on the podcast. No one was thinking about him. This was a team that was 1-2, probably on its way to a 5-8 type season, and that's not how it's looking like it's going to go. They have the stable. They have a few top-tier wide receivers, and as Pat said, they have flexibility, and that's going to be a huge deal when it comes to a few of the bye weeks that are coming up. So I'm really impressed by the floppy knockers. I think they're a team to be trifled with, not to be trifled with these days. And I think we have only 2 more, and I would talk about Moise Towlett, but we already hit on George Kittle. He's the beast. He's all that matters. Everyone else on that team can go kick rocks. We're all done talking about that team. So let's talk with the last two matchups. Let's save the best for last. So let's go with House of Pancakes versus Chief Gentlemen. Pat, take me through your mindset going into that game, and then as you're seeing it, I saw you kind of toying with the idea of a comeback, not looking great, and then seeing Julian Edelman not perform for you. And really, if he did, this could be something where you could have seen a comeback win and be sitting at 4-0. What happened in this matchup?
Yeah. No, I think the big storyline of the week was obviously Eckler and Nick Chubb, which just coincidentally were playing each other. They really canceled each other out on that front, so I can't even use that as an excuse, really. I think, really what it came down to was the Cowboys. With Dak Prescott going off for 37, Amari going off for 33. It's tough. I mean, those are week winning numbers there. And then looking at my team here, speaking to Sunday, had some kind of poor performances, relatively speaking, from Jonathan Taylor, and that was really it. So I was feeling okay going into the later window, but really kind of climbing uphill after that Dallas game. It was tough to kind of get some momentum, and then really when it came down to Monday night. Just watching Julian Edelman play football on Monday was awful. I mean, it just in two ways. As a Patriots fan and as an owner, it was disgraceful. I couldn't even watch. I may have to drop the man. I was so disgusted by that drop ball. But we'll see. I was talking to Warren about it today. Got contingency plans in effect, kind of for Eckler's absence. But a real pickle right now is trying to decide what to make of Edelman, what to make of that receiving core in New England. So overall, I mean, Landy's team played very well. Got to give him all the credit in the world. Dak is looking like, the QB1, and Amari had a great game too. So, they had a really good game, and, I think his team's looking pretty good, and hopefully he can, bounce back from that Nick Chubb injury.
Yeah, no, I mean, this Dak Amari stack, as you well know, as a former Amari owner, it's going to hit in spades at some point in time. And those, as Pat said, those are the week winners, right? I think David the House of Pancakes really have the week winners that you ask for. Now, when they can string them together is going to be his main question. But I think for now, he's in a very good spot. And I think he's well deserving to be in that contender category. Let's go to the game of the week. And I think we should call this one Game of the Week, WEAK, because it is the least impressive game of the week I've ever seen. We have Pat Man Jones, who's still beating his chest after the win, only putting up 129.58. I would have beaten him, to put that into context. But then we have the Dark Knights, who, again, was asked to come on the program, radio silence. So the state radio thing, for a communist country, we're giving them all the free speech he can ask for, and it's not happening. So we're gonna stick it to him, and I think it's deserved, right, Alex? I mean, we saw the ceiling last week, we saw the floor this week. Which team is it?
I mean, it's a sickening performance. His team is going to fall somewhere in between, but to get, what is that? I'll call it 11 points from your three starting receivers combined. That's not good. That's not a good sign. I think AJ Green is one of those guys that's approaching borderline unstartable. Marvin Jones hasn't done anything since Galladay came back. Yeah. Those are holes. Obviously, he's got Kelsey, Kamara, Kyler, Ridley. Those guys are studs, although the Ridley situation was strange. I think, Julio went out, and then they had the Packers had their number one guy, Alexander, on Ridley, and Ridley was kind of bagged up too. So that's kind of that's an outlier as far as putting up a total goose egg. But I mean, overall, from a game of the week standpoint, it's incredibly disappointing. Incredibly disappointing, not just from the Dark Knights, but from Pat Man as well. This was a game that was pretty much never questionable. We knew who was going to win the whole way. Yeah. And the winning team didn't even put up a lot of points, which made it just not super interesting to follow. So disappointing, but, to answer your question, I think the Dark Knights will float somewhere in between what we saw the first 3 weeks in here. It's interesting. The landscape of this league looks a lot different now than it did last week, where you had these two top tier teams that have been since, brought down back to earth a little bit. O'Reilly, maybe mainly because of, injury. But yeah, I think this loss evens things out quite a bit. This performance evens things out quite a bit, and will make for some interesting scenarios come week 12, 13.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just to finally wrap up the recap segment, we have an unbelievable standings, as you made clear. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 3-1 teams, 4 2-2 teams, 1 1-3 team, and 2 0-4 teams. We now have the upper class is huge, the middle class is very small, and the lower class is just made it 2. This is going to be one of the better seasons we've had in terms of a pure parity standpoint. This is looking really good. So I'm excited to see what week 5 has in store, because there are a lot of good matchups, a lot of situations because there aren't those top tier teams. A lot of movement could happen after week 5, and I can't wait to see it. Let's go to our favorite segment, to our Yikes segment. And I think I'll have Alex, I'll have you hit it off, because I have one in mind, and I hope we don't run into each other, but I don't think we will. I have a very specific one. So I'll be interested to hear what both of you guys have.
Yeah, absolutely. So for my yikes, I'm going to go over to the Moist Towelette Floppy Knockers matchup. So I'm going to give each of these owners a yikes, because there were 2 very questionable and matchup deciding decisions made on each side. So starting with Tom, benching Tom Brady is what are you doing there? I mean, I know Burrow's exciting, but you drafted Brady to be your QB1. He goes out and throws 5 touchdowns and 370 yards, 32 fantasy points. Because of that, 17 point difference between him and Burrow, you're left sweating out a Monday night or Sunday night miracle from George Kittle. So that's a yikes for Tom. And then on the flip side of that, with Diana leaving Antonio Gibson on his bench, let's say he threw him in there instead of Slayton. I don't even know what his first name is. The guy's so irrelevant, but that's a guy that's on literally the worst offense in the league. You can't rely on him for anything week in, week out. At least with Gibson, you're getting kind of like a high upside, electric running back, right? So yeah. It's crazy to think that if Diana had started Gibson instead of Slayton or Hilton for that matter, he wins that game on Sunday night, comes from behind Kittle's 40 points, and that would have been something to see. So for robbing us of that excitement and one of the best comebacks in LoS history, I'm giving Moist a yikes. But yeah, Tom got one too. I'm not just picking on Chris.
No, I think that's totally fair. And the fantasy gods didn't, they didn't strike down on Tom. They sure as hell struck down on the Kansas City Chiefs for going against the Patriots offense, and didn't work out for them, even though they played well. So that's the type of stuff that happens when you go against your favorite team, supposedly. I think my yikes is going to be reserved for a special man. His name, or the franchise's name, is the Kansas City Chiefs. You have Larry Fitzgerald on your roster still, and that just can't happen. We rail on the Dark Knights 24/7 about how his entire wide receiving core, besides DJ and Calvin Ridley, are dust. What's beyond dust? And that's Larry Fitzgerald. Having him there as kind of your team captain, like I have with Rex, you put him on the bench, you see, hey, good performance, get the boys hyped up, but you never put him into your starting lineup. And to be in a position, I'm sorry, but to be in a position where you put Larry Fitzgerald into your starting lineup, almost to have people say, well, what else is he going to go with? That's a huge yikes for me. And to waste a talent like Aaron Jones 4 weeks in the season going 0-4, it's a smack in the face. I mean, I had Aaron Jones a few years ago. Pat's had him for many years. And this is a sort of situation that it's tragic. It's really sad to see, because you switch spots and the stink's on us for not picking Aaron Jones where Pat and I were and letting him go to where John was. But at the same time, you don't surround him with this kind of talent. And I have few sources within the Chiefs organization that says Aaron Jones didn't show up today for practice after Monday Night Football, after he found out that they lost. And it's going to be an interesting situation to monitor. I wonder if Woj has any more on that tomorrow. But it's looking like a team that's broken down and battered. And to put Larry Fitzgerald in a situation where he has to perform, that's a yikes from me. Pat, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think you guys hit on some good ones. I'm going to give an overarching league-wide yikes. The lack of handcuffs in the league and really turning against that. This waiver wire has been wild with money flying everywhere. We're talking James Conner with Benny Snell going for $27. We're talking Justin Jackson going for $61. We're talking
Darrell Henderson,
Darrell
78.
Henderson. So, I think I listen, I tried to handcuff my entire team and I missed out on the one I actually needed to handcuff. So we're starting to see it this year. I mean, it's definitely a big year. So I think, the lack of handcuffs has been making the markets very volatile in the free agency bidding.
I think almost the yikes could come from so many people rooting against players or rooting for players to get injured because they keep having their own different handcuffs. We had a situation with Bob early in the year. He thought he had Benny Snell as a locked-in wide receiver 2, hoping that James Conner would, I hate to say it, get leukemia again, and God forbid, but he said that, and that's not going to happen. James Conner's looking great. So, we have that, and I think that deserves a triple yikes. Rooting against injuries isn't funny. It's not fun. It's not something so anyone should do. Moise Towlett has actually, after getting trounced by the Dark Knights, said the day after, I hope your entire team gets injured to the Dark Knights. It's the type of behavior we don't really like.
It's a gentleman's game.
It's a gentleman's game. It's a fun league. It's competitive, but hey, if you're going to start rooting for injuries, rooting against teams, hoping for someone to tear their ACL. And unfortunately I have the number one suspect of that for rooting for injuries right next to me. Anytime Nick Chubb or Josh Jacobs had the ball, I heard a quick kill him out of the corner of the room.
It's heat of the moment. It's never mean anything truthful. Just heat of the moment. I apologize. I'm working on it. I did admittedly cheer when Marlon Mack went down, and Jonathan Taylor was able to get some more touches. But I think this week was very. It was a realization the karma's real. So I'm going to be better about that going forward.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the best way to put it. I think Chase Gentleman's in a great position, but some counselors are headed to that organization and need to really let them know that that's not cool. That's not good. We should be better.
We're overturning some personnel, more on the team building and, work with counselors and really trying to, kind of get our team culture in check. It's kind of been a little lackadaisical lately.
Yeah. So, you're in the basement.
Oh, man.
That's right.
It's just one of those things. You will do anything it takes to win.
That's right.
And that's what it takes sometimes. But hey, you better believe that they're coming back for you and that the gods will be back to claim one of your own. And when I saw Austin Eckler almost like hyperextend his knee and
I got a message on Yahoo. I got a message on Yahoo. First, I didn't know there was a messenger feature on Yahoo Fantasy, but I did discover it. The message, Eckler, and I freaked out. And
Wait, Warren sent you that?
No, David.
David was playing.
David, instead of texting, House of Pancakes decides to use the Smackboard feature on Yahoo Sports.
Yep.
That is tyrannical. That is absolutely ridiculous.
It was.
So the Ecklers from now on, and that deserves a full-on yikes. Using the Smackboard, it's one of those things you can only help but stand. I love the message board. I think there are probably some data rates that David was running close to for the cycle or something like that. He had to use the Smackboard, but that's how it goes.
Yeah.
But that, as usual, fantastic yikes. And now we're going to hit what could have been another yikes. It's the Wall Street Minute. And Alex, Fab is winding down here for some teams for a myriad of reasons. And this week, that wound down for Chafe Gentleman, going after Justin Jackson, covering bid of $32, and he bid up to $60. And I just wanted to give Chafe Gentleman the opportunity to go through the mindset over the course of yesterday, as he supposedly, rumor said, kept bidding up and up and up, and it turned out to only be against himself.
Yeah, no, that's right. Went in yesterday knowing I needed to bid on Justin Jackson. Certainly not the lead back there, but at least, have some exposure there and some protection if Eckler's, stays out for a while. It's so tough to really gauge what an accurate bid will be, this year. So I started, pretty conservative, and then I kept coming downstairs, talking to Warren, talking to Jack, hearing more chatter about, interested parties. And I just kept, pushing it up and up and up and up. And, really just kind of lost sight of the value. But at the end of the day, I'm happy I got him. We'll see what happens. But definitely a yikes on my part, putting away too much. We did have a conversation with our CFO today. He walked me through it. We did an audit of his paper trail. Clean, no meddling. So we're happy about that. But, certainly, we thought he was valued high, and we missed the mark a little bit, but hopefully it works out.
Well, it did work out in the end. He got his man. And Alex, I mean, it is tough. It's a fascinating thing. Last year you implemented the FAB budget, and again, that same CFO just keeps on coming back and hurting Chief Gentleman and
It's funny. I think Nico texted me last night about it. He said, "Big night for Chafe's CFO." We all knew it was coming. Just a ridiculous bid on somebody with Eckler getting hurt. So
Yeah, you knew it was coming.
Yeah, you knew it was coming.
It's just like people know if someone really wanted him, they knew my bid was going to be extremely high. So I'm like, I got to even go higher. And it was just it was chaos.
At what time of the night was your last bid?
That was a little after 10. I had it about $45, and I'm like, no, it can't be. And then I went up to 60, and I was like, all right. Then I was able to sleep. And then I woke up, and I woke up early.
That's awesome.
I got him, and I'm like, how much did I overbid him by? Didn't even want to know the answer to it.
I got and then of course you posted the social media posted the Deion Sanders picture.
That's right. We knew
fantastic.
It was going to be spending. It was a big spending night. Haven't really used my FAB budget yet, so I figured if there's one guy to spend it on, I need some protection on Eckler. Hey, it's sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
That's right. It's as fair as you get. And I'm going through some text that I got earlier this week, and it's very interesting when you take a look at it. I'm at a point where Nico says, the Dark Knight says, I think Patman got so lucky last week. So I'm going to stop reading the text and just focus on this FAB budget. It's interesting, Alex, is it not? I mean, it's a blind process. I mean, I haven't gotten hit by it too badly, but it's an interesting process. And I think it's here to stay. I think it's really good situation.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, the trend we see is that if there's a guy you want or need, you're going to spend way, way more than someone who doesn't need him, which is fine. That's part of what I like about it, and kind of likens it to like an auction draft. You get the guy that you want. So that's good. I think it's definitely here to stay. The only talked about some wrinkles with some other people in the league, one being, what if we used actual money for FAB and then put the FAB money that was spent into the winnings, into the winnings for the winner. So I thought that could be an interesting avenue to explore if you actually had to shell out $60 to have Justin Jackson on your roster. You probably wouldn't do it, but at least there would be some extra money for to do other stuff with at the end of the season. So I think that's something that could be interesting to talk about. But yeah,
I like that a lot. I think that'll be in the owners' meetings. I think it'll be interesting. Wall Street does so well because they're playing with other people's money. What happens when their money goes on the line? I like that a lot. That's really interesting. So we're winding it down here. We're a smaller podcast than we were before, which I think will be a pleasure to all the listeners. We've had a great time. I want to get to some previews for next week before we head out. We have kind of an interesting slate, Alex and Pat. We don't have any sort of 1 versus 2 matchup, 1 versus 4 matchup. The closest we get is a 4 versus 3 in Hamos and Pat. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at week 5. I'm so sorry. We have a 1 versus 11. We have a 3 versus 12, a 6 versus 7, 4 versus 9, 5 versus 2. So this is like I said before, this is a week that it might shake a lot of things up, but it's not going to change too much. It'll be very interesting. But I think if we're going to announce the game of the week, I think it should be you, Alex. The game of the week for week 5 will be.
Yeah, so the game of the week for week 5 is going to be our loser leaves town matchup of the week. We've got a bitter rivalry here of sorts, a lot of trash talking going on between these two, online, offline, in person. It's going to be Raz Al Ghul at 2-2, battling off a myriad of injuries against Simba Corp 1-3, who with a loss would fall into the depths of the standings with Moist and KCQ. So a lot on the line in this one. I would say the loser of it, has little chance of contending this year, unfortunately. Should be a good one though. The projections they're about 9 points apart right now in favor of Warren. Looking at it, I think that's because Bob still has the same, injury trouble that we've been talking about, and guys in his lineup that really have no business being in there. So it'll be interesting to see how this one shakes out. Pat, who do you like in this one?
Yeah, I think to your point, it's Bob's, there's the roster's really, hit with injuries, and having Devontae on a bye, even if he was healthy or not, it's a big hole in the lineup. So, I got to go with Simba here. I think, he knows how much of a must win this is. I think he's been putting up good numbers this year, and, a lot of these guys are pretty solid. So, I think I'm going to go with Simba in a close one, but I definitely feel pretty confident about that.
Yeah, I think this is a loser's leave town. I think you have that exactly right, Alex. The guys in my clubhouse know what's on the line. They have the utmost respect for Raz Al Ghul and that corporation and that franchise. It's a storied franchise. I think as Raz was pointing out to us earlier today, Alex, this is a kind of a make or break point for his franchise as well, because there has been a few down years in the past few years, and will it continue this year? Injuries be it as it may, it's a tough situation, but no one comes up with excuses besides a few people in the league, but definitely not Raz Al Ghul. No excuses. They love winning. They know how to win, and it's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be an absolute bar fight, and we know that going into it. I know we're probably not going to have Julio Jones, first overall pick, in the lineup. That's what's inflating this matchup. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people are saying, but I think we're reaching that point where it is do or die. And a lot of nervous faces in the locker room. That's why we brought Gronkowski in there. That's why he's in the lineup right now. He kind of lightens things up. We're excited to see what he can bring. But, a lot of performances just haven't been coming that I think will be due this week, and I have a good feeling about it. And I think that's going to be a great game of the week. It's well deserved. I think it is the loser leaves town matchup. It's not all about the two best teams going after it. It's about rivalries. It's about what can happen with a win or a loss. And with a win, I'd like to say I'm right back in the thick of it, trying to vie for that 5-6 slot in the playoff standings, because I go up against House of Pancakes next week without Josh Jacobs. But then you look again and you see that Raz Al Ghul, if they're able to get this win and have another week to not have Devontae on there, all of a sudden Devontae, Godwin, Le'Veon all come back at the same time. You're looking at a really, really tough out, especially in the playoffs when they get healthy. So I think this is going to be a hell of a matchup. I can't wait to see it. And I think our final segment, just to see what's sizzling on the stove, we have our hot stove segment. I'll be frank, I've been in a few trade talks this week. I have a bit of an identity crisis within my team, and I don't want to be on record as saying we're shopping, him or her for certain guys, but him for a lot of these guys. But I've been on the market. I've been trolling the phone lines, and just want to hear if any of you guys hear anything else. What else is going on the phone lines? Do we have teams picking up? After last week's trade, there seems to be some sort of fire left in the trade market, and I think that's still the case, Alex.
Yeah, so I have a question, Warren, for you, actually. I'm seeing a lot of back and forth between you and Moist on Twitter. I'm wondering if that is trade-related. I could have sworn you guys put an embargo of sorts on negotiations in years past. Has that been lifted, or are we talking with Moist at this point, or is that still in place?
I think it goes back to the same way that the Soviet Union talked with the United States. There was a red phone, and that went straight to the Kremlin, where Moise Towlett is, and I'm right in the Oval Office. And if he needs to talk to me, he can talk to me. But I'll tell you this much: if he comes after me again with an Allen Robinson for Kenyon Drake trade offer, I swear to God, on everything that is holy, Gemma is gone. The dog is gone. It's going cold war to hot war. If he tries coming after me with a deal like that, I swear to God. With that being said, I'm open for trades. Moise, please return my text messages. I have about 4 sent out to him that have not been responded to yet. I think he's out to dinner. That's why he wasn't on the show tonight. But with that being said, I'm more than open for trades. I sent Paul a trade as a birthday gift today. We'll see who's get a gift for. It might be my half birthday gift. It might be his full birthday present. The way that my trades are going, it might be a birthday present for him. But I'm putting feelers out there. This is still a team in flux, and I think we have a few teams in flux. I mean, Pat, you're open for trades, are you not? You're the one that started the Christian McCaffrey sweepstakes.
Yeah. No, listen, I certainly am. I can't say specific guys on the block, but I'd always look at a trade and see how it makes sense. So yeah, I'd be open. Definitely interested in making some moves, particularly after Eckler's gone.
Yeah, Alex, from your vantage point, do you see any? I mean, you've made your trade. You feel pretty set where you are. I think that's my read on your team. Do you see any other openings for trades in this league right now, or maybe this might be we're just battening down the hatches, wait for the trade deadline sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak for my team. I haven't analyzed everybody else's well enough to identify potential trades, but I'm pretty comfortable staying where I am. The only thing, I approached Moise about a Kittle, or he approached me about another Drake deal. He seems to be, just an unwanted commodity, but Moise is trying to shed him. I came back and asked for Kittle, and he basically said no deal, and that was the end of it. Other than that, I mean, I think tight end is really the only thing I'm interested in. I got a huge gap there on my team, so if anybody's got a legit tight end that they're willing to part with, I am more than willing to trade a receiver for that, with some pieces included. So that's a feeler out there for those that are interested. Otherwise, I think this league has been, or this year the league has been good with big trades and back-to-back weeks, something that we usually stay away from as a group. And would be nice to see that continue, just to continue to spice things up. But I think it's like you said, Warren, I imagine it probably dies down for a little bit. And then as we get closer to November 14th, which is the deadline, probably see a few transactions around then.
November 14th. Can't wait to see it. Well, for this podcast, again, another fantastic one. I think we cut it down to 35, 40 minutes. All good. Everyone's going to love it. Alex, thank you as always. We'll be back here, same time, same place next Wednesday. Pat, thank you for joining. Much appreciated. And we'll be back, ladies and gentlemen. It's the League of Shadows. Enjoy.